various forms, management has told us that there is a very real, very concrete, very detailed development plan for Harrison Brunicke. I'm going to translate all of that intricacy into 2 words. Good morning to you. Those aren't the 2 words. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Club was on the ice yesterday in Cranberry practicing. A real practice this time, not an optional. Got everybody's legs going, got everybody looking forward to Friday night against the Wild at PPG Paints Arena. Another game the next night against the Kraken. And unless I'm missing something amidst the countless signals being sent about Brunick's development, he's not going to be part of those. And in fact, he was never intended to be part of those because he's now a habitual healthy scratch, stuck at the 9-game point. If he plays his 10th game, he triggers the first year of his entry-level contract. All kinds of other minutia and legalities about all this stuff, principally related to the stupid rule, and one that's probably going to be gone by next year, that stipulates that NHL teams have to return a player to juniors rather than to the AHL, which is where somebody would be better suited for their own development if they're that close to participating in the NHL as Brunick is. That leads me to my 2-word title for everything that they're doing here. No juniors. That's all this is about. You're going to see the Penguins find a way to hold on to Brunick past this point, that point, right up until he's qualified to go to the AHL for what would be branded a conditioning stint because he's been so static here in Pittsburgh. And from there, you get closer to the World Junior Championships, IIHF. That happens around Christmas time. And the player can be loaned to Team Canada in this case. Heck, that might happen with Ben Kindle for all we know, depending on how that proceeds. But the goal, the obvious goal with all of this is to make sure that those players don't go back to juniors. I gotta say, I respect that. I think that's the right move. In fact, I think it's a no-brainer. There's this one dude who does play-by-play for some team in the Western League. Got really, really mad at me about this on social media. Popped off about it. Genuinely don't remember his name or the team that he was with, but it was one of those, Alberta, Saskatchewan teams. And his main point was, why do you keep denigrating junior hockey when it was the WHL as a league that was good enough to develop these 2 players? Well, yeah, obviously. But guess what happens? They get outgrown. The Quebec League was good enough to develop Sidney Crosby and Mario Lemieux. You'll never guess what happened to them at a certain age. But they do get defensive up there, and understandably, it's part of their culture, it's part of their heritage. In the smaller towns, which is where most of these junior teams are, that's their connection to the highest level of hockey. That's their connection to the NHL. They take pride when those guys go on to become, and they don't want to see it fade away. They don't want to see it get taken away. But listen, when a player is ready for a certain level in any sport, they need to be playing at that level, or at the very least closer to that level than to the level from which they just graduated. I would think this is a transparent concept. Kindle himself will tell you that he learns more in just a handful of minutes in an NHL game, or even a practice, than he could anywhere else. He learns more from Sidney Crosby, obviously, than he could from anyone else. Certainly anyone who'd be, a part of the Calgary Hitmen. So what I'd been advocating for, going back to training camp, was keep them up here. Find a way to keep them busy. Find a way to keep them involved and engaged and progressing. Now, Kendall, of course, has made that easy. He just belongs in the lineup night after night after night. Brunick started out that way, then dropped off. But they're both still here, not just Kendall. Dan Muse did some explaining after practice yesterday as to what goes into what the Penguins people just refer to again and again as the plan.
We have a plan for him, and we've been working through that plan. I mean, our plan is, there's been a lot of discussions on that with him and our plan. And, we continue to execute it. There's on ice, there's off ice, there's video. There's a lot of things. I think there's a lot of things, too, that have gone on behind the scenes, which might not be maybe as evident there, just coming in and just from watching practice. But there is a plan, and so I'm not going to get into any more details on it past that, but we're continuing to work through that with them, and we feel like it's been going well.
Now, I'm not sure what the secrecy there is about, or whether Muse was just uncertain whether or not Kyle Dubas would want him talking about that, or if they maybe think that somebody would get mad somewhere, that they're possibly gaming the system a little bit by keeping that player, in this case Brunick, here in Pittsburgh for his own personal training camp versus letting Canadians enjoy the fruits of their own developmental labor in the WHL. But there it is. That's what they're doing. I am, and this is in the most general sense, always applauding any management, any team, any league that does its own thinking, that doesn't just go along with whatever the next guys are doing. Well, this isn't how it gets done in the NHL, or this isn't how the Hurricanes or the Sharks handled this a couple of years ago or whatever. I don't care about any of that stuff. Have your own smart people in your own small orbit and do your own thinking and prioritizing for what's best for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Having those two kids here and not going back to juniors and taking all kinds of shortcuts naturally. That's not even a potential knock there. It's just human nature. If nobody's in your way through the neutral zone, you're just going to skate right up the middle, and you can even do it with your head down. Whereas you try it at this level and you're going to get dismembered. All eyes forward. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Gurjeet, who says, "Hi DK, with teams like the Oilers and the Leafs struggling with goaltending and injuries, can you see the Penguins trading Tristan Jarry, Yoel Blomqvist, or Artur Shilovs for the right price?" The reason I bring this up is that, as you've stated, Jarry's probably the best goaltender right now at the Penguins NHL level with the way he's playing, and if they keep up their current winning pace, do you really want to hurt the chances of them making the playoffs with him gone? I'm not sure why you limited the discussion here to a couple of the Canadian teams that have struggled with goaltending forever, and specifically related to the Leafs. This is a team that isn't going anywhere anyway, and there's precedent for that. They never do. The Oilers, on the other hand, I've seen, I don't know, man, maybe this is just naive. I've seen the Oilers as being like one smart goaltending move away from winning the cup. And you would think they would have run into that by accident at this stage of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl being there together, and they just never do. But the Leafs, yeah, yikes, wow. If you're going to bring up a Canadian team in this concept, the one that I'd bring up is Montreal, with Sam Montembeault being their main goaltender and their .877 collective save percentage, ranking fourth from the last. Canadians have a lot of promising players, and they do not have it in net. But from the Pittsburgh perspective, it's funny how decisions that look like they'd be so easy one month look like they're just impossible the next. you would have given anything if you were Kyle Dubas just a few weeks ago for somebody to come and take Jari's contract off your hands. No, I don't know that you would do that now. Would you move a Shilovs? Would you wait almost unconditionally to make sure that Murashov in particular would be ready for a prominent role in the NHL before you would consider anything involving Jari, Shilovs, or even Yoel Blomqvist? Yeah, I guess so, but really, really good offers don't stay on the table forever. And if the Penguins are, in fact, dealing with the goaltending surplus that it appears that they are, reminding everybody that it's just been a quarter of a season, and you have a significant amount of suitors for that position, some of the teams we just named, not Toronto, some of the teams that are relevant, you make a move? I don't know. You bring up the timing there, and the timing is not unimportant to this team at ice level at this time. But I like the way you're thinking here in general. You're not going to keep all four of these goaltenders, and you're not going to get anything from Blomqvist until he's healthy and goes on a run of his own, and I don't just mean in Wilkes-Barre. I think he's going to have to do it in Pittsburgh at some point, circumstances allowing. But when you look at the assets that have been accumulated, I mean, hey, stick taps all around. First off, for not giving up, at least not fully, on Jari, allowing him to come back up late last season and show a different side to himself on and off the ice. Same goes for the drafting of Murashov, a ceiling type at a position that's not usually very friendly to ceiling-based analysis. The trade with the Canucks to bring in Shilovs, but only after the trade of Alex Nedeljkovic to the Sharks that ensured there'd be similar assets involved. Ned's playing okay, by the way, out there in San Jose. A little bit of a rough start. One of the things that Dubas had made clear upon coming to Pittsburgh was that he believed that you need goaltending in bulk so that you can increase your chances of finding quality. That's the way analytical-minded executives in sports will couch. We just don't have enough information on this. We just don't. We're not going to pretend to understand goaltending or defensive backs in the NFL or relief pitchers in baseball. Some things are just a mystery. Some things just don't have enough hard, consistent data to them. So here's a bunch of goaltenders. Let's see who rises up. And in this event, if not for Blomqvist getting hurt, you'd have had all of them rise up. Very, very good situation for the Penguins to be in at the game's most important position. I appreciate the question, Gurjeet. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow in advance of the Penguins' first game here in Pittsburgh in a good while.